It's only been a few hours since the ICANN board meeting finished here in Singapore, and I'd like to thank both you gentlemen for taking the time to talk to us. Steve Crocker, thank you very much, newly elected board chair. Rod Beckstrom, president and CEO. Steve, let's start with you. With your appointment as the new chair and with the historic passage of the new GTLDs, what sort of new challenges lie ahead for you?
This is a very big operation, and so I'm now in the uncomfortable position of trying to sit astride and hang on for dear life, as it were. The real challenge is for the organization as a whole to execute on moving this GTLD program forward, as well as carrying on the regular day-to-day business that it's already has to do, and the affirmation and commitment. So there's a kind of a triple there. And there will be both resource and execution challenges for the well-defined parts of the program, and there will be unanticipated problems or oddball cases or loose ends that have to be dealt with. And so there'll be a certain amount of refinement that will be posed to us while we're trying to get on with the main work.
I'm hearing you say that the board's work with new GTLDs is not finished.
Well, in the main, we've set the course, but I think it would be, I don't want to make too big a deal of it, but there's always something that's going to come up, and we're not going to go to sleep and say, we're done, it's all over with. I imagine we're going to be pretty embroiled on a continuing basis.
Rod, we've entered a new phase with the board's approval of the GTLD program, the implementation phase. Is ICANN ready?
Sure. Yeah, we've built an excellent executive management team. We've been preparing for this moment for years as an organization, certainly all 2 years since I've been here. The program's already been under development, so the software systems, management teams, still a lot of work to do, and it's a tight schedule. We have additional things that we layered on this week, such as support for needy applicants from developing countries. The staff will need to support the process of the community and the board resolving that quickly and implementing that. But yes, we are ready to move ahead with the program as long as we keep it as we've defined it and don't start changing and expanding the scope.
Are you concerned about that?
Sure. The natural pressure from this community is always to iterate and change and refine, and so we're going to have to resist that temptation while we execute the first round.
Is that, or is something else your single greatest fear in terms of implementing properly the new program?
Yes, it actually is. My greatest fear is scope creep of changing the spec or the pressure to add new things in. I think we can handle what was approved by the board on Monday. We can handle doing something for needy applicants in developing countries if the board and community come up with very clear directions by Dakar at the latest, and then allow us to go and execute. But if there's all kinds of other deliberations that come in and lobbying to change things, and it would put pressure on the date, not on the program so much, but on the date of the launch that is currently scheduled for January 12th, and that's what we're committed to.
So you want a clear roadmap?
Yes, and the clear roadmap comes from sticking with the plans that have been approved. The community's already been worked on. There'll be lots of other great ideas for the future. Let's consider those for subsequent rounds. All the focus now needs to be on execution, and as Steve said, on resolving any issues that relate to the framework that's already approved as we go through the next set of details and steps on it.
How many applications do you expect to receive if you're looking ahead when the application process opens on January 12th?
Yeah, we just don't speculate like that. And as we've stated, there's some websites out there that say there's 90 applicants that seem to self-identify, and maybe there's 120 candidates, but we don't tally, we don't do that. Our job is to be prepared to handle the applications in an orderly and professional fashion to protect the security and stability of the root of the internet.
Steve, has the relationship between the ICANN board and the GAC been redefined by the dialogue and debate that occurred over the GTLD issue?
I would say it's certainly gotten improved, and it's gotten deeper in the sense that this has provided a very hefty, substantive opportunities and experience of interacting back and forth with each other. And I've been able to experience firsthand that the relationships are broader and deeper, as I said, and that there will be easier communication and earlier involvement in whatever processes come up. So it's been a pretty positive, and I found it pretty exciting. I'm actually, in the past, the relationship with the GAC has been kind of isolated, and speaking personally, I feel a lot closer and a lot more, it's more immediate, you know, like I can sense it.
Let me spin off of that. When I talked to your predecessor, Peter Dangate Thrush, and I asked him what single bit of advice he would have for you, it could basically be summed up in 2 words: flexibility and listening. Would you agree with Peter in terms of the importance of those 2 qualities?
Well, absolutely. And I would start even with the listening first and foremost. Flexibility always, and then I would add a third, which is follow through, execution. It's fine to listen. It's absolutely important to listen, and it's important to have some flexibility. And it's also very important to follow through on the commitments and build the trust that comes from getting things done and from success, rather than just a lot of talk and posturing.
Rod just spoke about the importance of clarity, about the importance of direction, and singularity of understanding of those elements. Is that of equal concern for you?
It certainly is, and the board is in the position of being the center of all petitioning. People come at us from individually, they come at us as part of organizations, they come at us through the supporting organizations, advisory committees, and the board is obligated and has a very important role to listen, as you said, and to be respectful of those, and at the same time to steer a course that actually is not going to cause fracturing and unraveling everything. So a certain degree of firmness, of support for the decisions that are made, and of a quickening of the pulse and a desire to get there, as opposed to so the time for endless discussion is over. And at the same time, a degree of sensitivity, and balancing that is a real challenge, and a lot of that comes to the board. And we have a, as I say, there's no safe position. You can't be 100%, or you know, people will say you're too rigid or you're too flimsy or whatever. But the primary thing is, just as Rod said, that we have to have focus and direction, and we have to have forward motion.
Rod, there was so much controversy surrounding .xxx. Does it concern you that we've opened the floodgates to even greater controversy on some of these new GTLDs that will be applied for?
Not really. You know, some people suggest there's more blocking that's going to happen because of XXX. The reality is, we read in other sources out there that perhaps over 40 countries do, you know, some level of blocking, and that trend is on the rise, and that was happening irrespective of XXX. And I don't know that there's been any material change in that position since then. And in fact, I'm kind of surprised that after the board approved XXX and it went into the root, things seem you know, fairly quiet on that front. But no, I don't think it'll change the program.
One of the continuing criticisms that we hear from some analysts is that $185,000 application fee is in effect a cash cow for ICANN.
Look, we're a nonprofit organization, we're community driven, we serve the global public interest, and this program is run on a cost recovery only basis. If there's any funds left at the end of it, we'll go back with the community and the board and look at how to handle that, but it's all priced out to be break even.
The new GTLD program was approved this week at the meeting here in Singapore, and yet the period of application doesn't begin until January 12th. Why the long delay?
Because we really want to communicate around the world the availability of this program. You know, if you look at the ICANN community itself, most of the people who come here, participates in our events through the various stakeholders, are experts or have a high level of knowledge of this program and what it's doing. But there's a lot of organizations around the world, governments, corporations, NGOs, IGOs, that really don't know much about it. So we have arranged a communications plan to go around all 5 regions of the world and communicate. And it started on Monday the 20th, and it certainly started with a lot of attention to the interest. I mean, a lot of interest on the issue.
There seems to be a great deal of confusion among the public between the generic top-level domain and those who want a second-level domain. Can you basically, in very lay terms, explain the difference?
Second-level domains under any of the major top-level domains are widely and easily available at very low cost and with very, very little control. So for in a few minutes and for a few dollars, you can apply for some domain. The top-level domains, the ones that go into the root, have been treated as very, very careful resources, each one managed in a very high-quality way. There's no concern globally in the community if somebody has a second-level domain and it stops working. That's their problem. There's enormous concern if a top-level domain stops working and under it all of the second-level domains that are registered in it might stop working. So from a stability point of view, security point of view, that's certainly one of the major concerns. And on the basis of that, part of the process and part of the cost, in fact, is to make sure that the applicants are ready to run a first-class top-level domain. They have the resources, they have the technical talent, that they're organized and so forth. And so that's one major aspect of all of that. Another major aspect is that top-level domains are viewed as having quite a bit of global visibility, which is perfectly appropriate. And so that brings all of the political and business forces, trademarks, and whether the names have any kind of meaning and whether there's emotional content associated with that and so forth. So there's a lot of things that go on. And even just in more direct stability and security issues, confusability, there's a desire to not have things that look too similar and cause users to misunderstand. So all those things add to the complexity and qualitatively change, even though from a very narrow technical response, we can say, what's the difference between top level and second level? The mechanics are about the same. But there's this enormous difference in the perceptions and the treatment and expectations that just leads to qualitatively different operation.
And let me just add, any consumer or small business or organization can do a second level domain name registration. That's easy. You've got a little bit of money, you go online, use your credit card. The new GTLDs are not for consumers. I mean, you have to have very serious technical, what we call registry operations, and you have to be an ongoing business to commit to this. It's a significant commitment of time, people, and resources.
Steve, you've had an amazing career. You're considered one of the architects of the Internet. Where would you place being elected as ICANN board chair in terms of those life experiences?
Well, it's what do you do after you've become useless as a technical person? They just elevate you to the front office.
Right.
So no, it's kidding aside. This is really quite a joy in the sense that it's been a long ride. I look back over more than 40 years from the time we put the first node on the ARPANET, and then all of the developments, and each one of the stages looks like it was huge compared to what came before. And so there's that wealth of seeing that arc of events and knowing a lot of the people and knowing the vast numbers of people that have been positively affected by all of these developments. So it's quite exciting, actually.
Rod, let me pose the same question to you. You're well aware of Steve's background. Is it the combination of his experience that will take the board in a new direction, or is there a single quality that you see that will vastly benefit him being the new chair?
Sure. Well, look, I think for one thing, it's a great transition at this time to occur. I mean, if you look at the last couple of years since I came here, enormous policy development work to be done on new GTLDs, a lot of intellectual property issues, and the previous chairman was a world-class expert in that topic. If you look at where we're going now, as we discussed, the draft applicant guidebook is approved. Now we need to go implement it, but maintain the security and stability of the Internet. And Steve's a world-class expert in that, and with his wealth of knowledge on that side, I mean, I think it's a really good teaming. I mean, my strength is on leadership side and execution, and he's got the tremendous, technology and security background. So I would just think that's a pretty good match for where we're headed.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.